So after that big win for Delhi on Tuesday, it's time for double header Wednesday. That's right, it's the second double header of the season, the first in midweek on Wednesday, and it's Punjab versus Sunrisers Hyderabad and Chennai Super Kings versus Kolkata Knight Riders. Two big games, two absolutely massive games in the context of the early stages of the tournament, and we'll dive straight into both of them. Let's start with Punjab versus Sunrisers Hyderabad. I think two teams that have gone in, that are coming into this on the back of a couple of defeats, and both will be very desperate for a win, especially Hyderabad, who've not yet registered a single win in this edition of the IPL and are languishing at the bottom of the table. Punjab, on the other hand, of course, started off the tournament well in slam bang action, but now have lost a couple of games on the bounce and will be keen to get back as well. Interesting to note that at the end of the day, Punjab are doing a venue change. They are moving now from they are moving to a different venue. They are moving to Chennai, and it'll be interesting to see how they adapt to that. They've been playing their games in Bombay in conditions that are very conducive to seam bowling and very good conditions for batting. But now in Chennai, you are playing in on a slow and low surface in trying conditions, and it's a day game. So it will be interesting to see how Chennai adapt. Obviously, Delhi adapted very well when they changed their conditions, when they moved to a different town, different city yesterday as they beat Mumbai. But it'll be interesting to see if Punjab take two new conditions right away. That is point number one for me. Very, very important indeed. So will that mean that they change their approach? Punjab essentially have gone in with a seam heavy bowling lineup, with Hooda as well coming in to support the lone spinner in their attack. Will they now try and add another spinner to their ranks? Someone like Ravi Bishnoi could come in maybe for Arshdeep or another seam bowling option. Perhaps that could be the case. And also they've preferred chasing. So will they now take to batting first on this surface? Remember, we've seen teams that are batting first are largely going on to win games in Chennai. Of course, last night was an exception, but it's largely the trend has been that teams batting first have done well, and RCB will vouch for that for certain. Bowling, we need to definitely Punjab need to figure out their bowling. I think their batting redeemed itself in the last game. All in all, they've looked good apart from that one blip that they had versus Chennai. But I think the bowling needs to figure itself. Do you continue with Riley Meredith, or do you get in someone like a Chris Jordan who can sort of add an extra batter to that lineup? We've seen that they've been a little suspect there with their lower middle order. Is that one change that you could possibly look at, perhaps? And the other change, of course, like we spoke earlier as well, is do you get in an extra spinner for a seamer, one of the seamers between Meredith or Arshdeep, or one of the options. I don't see Jai Richardson being dropped. I don't see Mohammad Shami, of course, not being dropped. So there are a couple of things that Punjab need to figure out in the lower middle order and in the bowling. I think they certainly will make a few changes in this one, and I think the spin bowling department will be sort of stacked up a little bit more in these conditions for certain. And I think without a shadow of a doubt, they look to bat first. They want to bat first on the surface. It's a day game. We've seen what RCB did in their game when they batted first and really took the game apart in that one, courtesy of Maxwell and De Villiers. So Punjab, there's a template for you to follow. You've already followed their jersey patterns, and now it's time for you to follow RCB's way of going about in Chennai as well. All right, let's take a look at Sunrisers Hyderabad. I think it's a team that does not lose its cool, right? It's a team that does not get worked up, but at this point of time, they certainly are in a spot of bother. They've lost a few games on the bounce. They haven't opened their account, and they would be desperate to do that. Any team, no matter who you are, no matter how calm your setup is and how brilliant your leadership team is, you want to tick off that zero in your W column. It's as simple as that, and I think Hyderabad will be keen to do that. They've made a lot of changes. That's certainly been the case. They've made a lot of changes. They've rotated. They've kept on rotating their foreign quota, especially their fourth foreigner. There's been Holder. There's been Nabi. Mujib came in the last game, so they've been rotating that foreign player. And I think in the last game, Mujib came in and picked up 2 wickets as well and looked good. So I think That is something that they wouldn't want to change right away, but in and around that, there are a couple of things that they need to change. The bowling, I think, is not a concern. The batting is a big concern for me, especially after your openers. What follows is a big factor in T20 cricket. The middle order, the early middle order and the late middle order are very important players, because remember, towards the end, the acceleration that you provide for the teams is essential. It's everything. And Sunrisers, if you follow their pattern, they've lost all their games while trying to sort of accelerate and chase largely, right? They've lost out games trying to chase down totals that have been graspable, that have been there after a good start from the top order. It was the role of the middle order to get them past the line, but they couldn't do it. And especially when your middle order, it looks like Manish Pandey, Virat Singh, Vijay Shankar, Abhishek Sharma and Abdul Samad, there isn't a lot of experience there. There isn't a lot of power there on offer. Yes, Virat Singh has just been drafted into the team. I don't see him being dropped. Abhishek Sharma as well, I think they'll give him another go, especially because he adds a little bit of value with the ball as well. But I think Vijay Shankar, it's time for Hyderabad to move past Vijay Shankar. He's not offered them a lot. In all fairness, they've given him a ton of opportunities. He's been put in situations where they have given him the onus to go out there and chase it down for the team, but it just hasn't worked. So I think it's time for Hyderabad to move past Vijay Shankar. There is an option available in KKR Jadhav. The experience of Jadhav, if he is fit, has to play. He adds that experience, adds that firepower. Could be a situation where new life is breathed into him, just like what's happened to Maxwell at RCB. Give Kedar Jadhav that go, let him bat up the order and see what he brings to the table. There's certainly something that Hyderabad can do, and they certainly should. I think it's a big game for Hyderabad. It really is a big game. They have to win this one if they are to stand a chance to qualify, not mathematically, but strategically and in terms of mindset. All in all, I think the team winning the toss will look to bat first, and the team that bats first will hold the advantage in game 1. Okay, let's take a look at game 2. We're talking about Chennai versus Kolkata. Well, it's a tale of two cities. It's a tale of two teams at this point. While Chennai are entering this game on the back of back-to-back wins, Kolkata not so much, and especially because they've really choked on a couple of games, and it's not looked good for Kolkata. They looked very impressive in the first one, but then on it's not been a similar case. There has been a ton of criticism about Morgan's captaincy. They've looked good in pockets. There's been but otherwise not very good. There's been criticism about Andre Russell. The big titans of Kolkata that the team is known for are not clicking at this point of time, and that is something that the management will be really worried about. Let's take a quick look at the game as well. Of course, there's a venue change. There's a move to Mumbai for Kolkata. Now, what does that mean? Do they change their approach? Now, Kolkata have been bowling in the power play with spinners, right? They've been using Harbhajan Singh. They've been using Shakib Al Hasan to open the bowling, maybe alongside one seamer in the first 6, and then comes Pat Cummins, and then comes Krishna, and then Andre Russell. So now, with Kolkata moving to Mumbai, will the likes of Pat Cummins and Prasidh Krishna open the bowling? They go for a more traditional approach of approaching your bowling innings? I think so. I certainly think so. There will be a change of approach, and there could even be a change in the team's composition. Well, now, while you've gone with a slightly spin-heavy team, you might see the inclusion of an additional spinner, of an additional seamer rather, and that really could be the case, especially because Kolkata really have to win this game. They have to get back into it. They have to get back their confidence more than anything else. It's not about a mathematical equation yet, but it's about how you begin the tournament and what is the kind of momentum you take when you change venues, when you change your surroundings in your locality. What is it that you do in your first impressions in that environment is going to be very important. I think a couple of areas of concern are definitely that Shubman Gill has to support Nitish Rana and Rahul Tripathi at the top. It was the other way around. When the season began, we were speaking about how Rana and Tripathi need to support Gill. But I think it's time for Gill to step up and help the other two at the top of the order. And goes without saying that the likes of Morgan and Karthik need to fire. But none more than Andre Russell. I think he has been the heartbeat of Kolkata for a long time. Last game, he was in the thick of things. he was out there when Kolkata needed that Andre Russell type of a special, where they were chasing versus their previous team, and he couldn't deliver. There was one over versus Siraj where he sort of just couldn't do anything at all. That was the penultimate over of the game, and he really couldn't get anything away to the boundary. One run, he just could manage to muster up one run in that over, and I think that was a big worry. That one over summed up Andre Russell's last 2 years for Kolkata, and I think it's time for Kolkata to either give him another go, and if it doesn't work, it's time for Kolkata to move on from Andre Russell, or stick around and give the hero the one last hurrah he needs. It's very, very honest, and it's absolutely clear from there. They have options on the bench. The likes of Sunil Narayan is there if you want that extra spin option, but I don't think that's going to be useful in these conditions. But there's also Ben Cutting, who adds that extra seam option to Kolkata. So I think it's time for Kolkata to take a clear look at Andre Russell and see where they want to take this and execute that. I think they definitely are in desperate need for confidence. A win against Chennai will give them confidence, especially because Chennai are entering this game on the back of back-to-back wins, and will be very, very confident, especially because their last game, they managed to put up 188 on the board versus Rajasthan. And it was a team effort to put those runs up on the board. Faf du Plessis with 30 odd was the highest run scorer on the scorecard, and yet they managed to put up 188 because there were performances from everybody except Ruturaj Gaikwad on that scorecard. The likes of Moeen Ali and Faf and Jadeja and Raina and Dhoni, Bravo and Karan at the end, everybody contributed and took them to that 188, and they defended it really, really well, earning a win by 45 runs. And I think that will add to their net run rate, but it will also add to their confidence. Jadeja was brilliant in the field, brilliant with the ball. Moeen Ali brilliant with the ball as well. All in all, a fabulous team performance in the last game, and I think they'll be very confident heading into this one as well. It's a night game. It's the second game of the game of doubleheader Wednesday, and I think conditions will be very interesting. And CSK are used to these conditions now. Kolkata will have to adjust to it, but that in no way says that CSK are favourites. Maybe they are. My prediction definitely for today's game is that CSK will turn out on top. Kolkata really lack confidence, but venue changes often result in everything changing for a franchise, like we've seen in the last couple of games, Bangalore and things like that. So and Delhi yesterday. So the venue change could really affect it and make a different game out of it. But at this point, Chennai look favourites. All in all, I think it's going to be a blockbuster Wednesday. Midweek action coming your way through IPL 2021, and CricketNews.com are around. Will continue to be around as you follow the games. So park yourself in front of your TVs, on your couches, and keep this with you, and keep CricketNews.com on all times as you watch the games for that extra experience to consume all things IPL 2020.